Alright, I'm going to be tying a girdle bug today. It's a traditional southern Appalachian pattern developed over on the Tuckasegee River. I know there are some people that claim this was developed out west. I'm not going to argue with them, but I do know a lot of people in Jackson County that would fight you over that. So as far as we're concerned, girdle bug is a southern Appalachian pattern. I'm using a long shank, 3X size 6 streamer hook. Starting my thread, I'm using 140 denier black thread. And this is a fly that has rubber legs. You see it tied out west with white legs. In the Smoky Southern Appalachians, they like to use a pale yellow for the legs. That's getting harder to find. This is more of a neon yellow, but it will serve our purposes. So this is just the sheet rubber band legs. These are round. And then when you get ready, you just separate. And for the tail, there are people that tie these in one at a time. I like to double up and knock it out at once. If I were going to put weight on this, and a lot of times this is tied as a weighted fly, I would put the weight in right now, wrap the shank with the weight, and then go back over it a few times with the thread. But I am not going to weight this one. And I've got this pretty much divided, folded over in half, and I'm going to tie the little loop in with a few loose wraps. You do need to hold these rubber bands in place because otherwise you will be chasing them around the hook shank. And I'll go back forward and back, and then just a couple of wraps in the back in between to get the tail fibers to go off in different directions, so they're not just right beside each other. And then I'm going to tie in my body material. Body material for this is black chenille, and I've already cut off some from the card. Doesn't take a lot, and I'm going to lay it alongside the hook shank almost up to the eye. And the reason I try to wrap it the entire length is so that the fly is fairly uniform in appearance across the back. And then once I get it tied to that point, it is ready to wrap forward. I'm going to go back over it one more time and then work my way about halfway back. Now this fly has 2 legs in the middle along the hook shank, and I'm going to cut a little, or strip a little piece about the same length as I did the tail, but instead of tying one of those in, I'm going to fold this over and trim it in 2. And there's two ways of tying this in. There are many people that will lay the rubber legs across like this and tie each one so it sticks straight out. I'm a big believer in shortcuts, so I am going to tie on the far side this rubber leg in about the middle of the leg, a few wraps in, and then I'm going to do this side. And yes, the rubber bands will try to get out of the way. Even that up just a little bit. Make sure they're on the side of the shank. A couple more ties. And I'm not going to worry so much about the angle of the legs right now because the chenille will take care of that. I'm going to wrap forward. This also has 2 forward facing antenna or feelers. I have seen this pattern tied with 3 legs down the middle on each side. You know, if you were tying a much bigger fly, maybe, but I've always just tied mine with the 2. So I'm going to do the same thing. I've got the same length that I made the tail out of, but I'm cutting it in half. This is basically the same length as the legs. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the legs, or with the tail. Make a loop and tie that in. And that's about as close as that needs to be to the front, and that will be the head at some point. And now the only step left is to wrap the chenille forward. By the way, this fly can be tied with a lot of different color legs, a lot of different colors of chenille. And many people will tie this exact fly and call it a Pat's rubber legs. Usually Pat's is going to be brown with a different material for the legs, but it's basically the same fly. So I'm wrapping the chenille forward, taking care not to overlap. Snug it right up against the legs. Then one wrap in between, and then pull the legs out of the way and make another close wrap. And that is, I like my legs flaring out at an angle like that. Some people like the legs going straight out. That's whatever choice, whatever you happen to like is fine. And about right there, we're going to tie off the chenille with a few wraps. And trim it off. And then just clean up the head a little bit. And whip finish. There are some people that like to tie this with a little bit longer antenna than what I put on this one. Once again, whatever you like. In fact, I am going to trim the tail slightly. It'll be nice and even, a little bit longer than the legs. And so that is girdle bug. If we tied this same pattern with brown or brown and black variegated chenille and maybe tan or brown legs, we would call it a Pat's rubber leg. Pretty much the same fly. Last step is going to be just adding a dab of head cement to the head. Very first time I saw someone catch a fish, indicator nymphing, we were tubing Deep Creek, and I saw the guy fishing, and as soon as the space appeared between tubes, he'd flip it out there and catch a fish. And when I saw what he was using, it was a girdle bug. And of course I went home and tied some girdle bugs and started nymph fishing, and I have to this day the biggest brook trout I have ever caught. Now, it was a stalker, but it was in Richland Creek back when it was delayed harvest, and it was on a girdle bug just like this. I'll pull these legs down just a tad, and it's ready to fish.